everyone, welcome to another episode. It's another week, it's another episode, yay. So today I wanted to talk about something that I've been thinking about for kind of the past week, I guess, with all of my auditions and rejections and just kind of, mulling things over. I kind of wanted to talk about riding on talent and my experience kind of vacillating back and forth between doing that and learning about hard work and learning about efficient work. If we start from the beginning, as a lot of people are when they're younger who are performers today, a lot of us were, the talented kids, the ones who got into things. And when you're a kid, you don't know how to work. I mean, you're a kid, right? So you do some things, my mom, helped me out. Like I worked on lines and memorization and stuff with like my mom, but I was by no means like raised in a family that was like a stage family. And my mom was, she was a bit of a stage mom in the sense that like she wanted me to do well, but it wasn't like she wasn't like a stage mom, So, I was always kind of a talented person who just, I'm also an inherently hard worker. So I've always just like worked hard at things. And then I remember getting into college and going to school and realizing, there's that moment where you realize, okay, like everyone was the talented one in their high school. So you kind of start to realize like, okay, like, it's that idea that you can't just like ride on talent anymore, that you need to put in work and you need to put in hours and you need to work smart. And I think that was one of the biggest things that I learned when I was in college was this idea. So, performing is a really interesting field because as a culture, I feel like we're so inundated with like movies and with other career paths that show us, the harder you work, the better you'll be. And like to a certain extent across all categories, like that is true. The harder you work, the more hours you put in, the better you'll do. The interesting thing with singing is that you don't want to damage your instrument. It's really fragile and delicate. It's tiny in there, So a big thing that I learned in college was that it's not about how hard you work, it's about how smart you work. And that was a really tough thing to kind of wrap my head around, especially in our culture today, where again, it's like, no pain, no gain, like push your way through, like, all of this jargon that goes on in our daily lives and in our heads of like, working really hard and like putting in hours and doing that stuff. I remember thinking I just had to spend a lot of time in practice rooms, and I didn't quite understand until a coach that I started working really closely with at the end of my freshman year kind of started explaining to me the difference between working hard and working smart, and that you don't have to put in like hours, you need to put in like, mental concentration. And it took a really long time for that to settle in, and I still kind of work on it. I still need to like tell myself, okay, it's not about the hours I spend, it's about the concentration. And I think that has been a really tough thing, especially in today's society, about like working hard and again, not riding on talent, but putting in the work. And then, once I finished up with college and went into grad school, I still kind of had that mentality of, understanding, but it's also, it's hard in school when you're surrounded by a lot of instrumentalists who can spend a lot of time in practice rooms and not, damage their instrument or damage themselves or whatever. And the amount of practice time they need to put in is very different than the kind of practice time singers need to put in, I should say. And it's really difficult to find that balance, I think, as a singer, especially, of like how hard do I need to work, how much do I need to work, and this idea that we shouldn't compare ourselves to others in terms of, you know, if we can get to the end result with we can memorize our music, we can put all of, you know, we can synthesize all that stuff, you know, how do we, what am I trying to say? We just shouldn't compare ourselves to, especially to other instruments, because our instrument is very different than a lot of other instruments. I started realizing when I was, you know, kind of doing the whole young artist track, that, so you have those 5 arias, and there's a difference between just running those 5 arias over and over and pinpointing certain spots that are trouble spots, or working on the thing that you want to just gloss over, but you can't because you could be singing it in the audition. And I've also been thinking a lot about this idea that we should be working on the thing that we don't want to work on, if that makes sense. So kind of this idea that I don't consider myself a strong dancer. So why am I spending all this time singing, which is like my strong suit, and why am I not taking dance classes? Because I'm comfortable singing, because I like that, I know that. And you need to like do the things that like make you uncomfortable. And that's like this whole thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately, is this idea that there comes a point in a lot of performers' lives where you realize people are passing you, people are getting work and you're not, and you wonder, what am I doing wrong? And then I feel like there's this aha moment of like, wow, they're putting in more work or smarter work than I am. And they're concentrating on things. And again, you shouldn't compare, but there comes a time when you need to realize that you can't ride just on your talent, that there's a lot more that is involved in this career than just being talented. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and if you don't have the time, or if you aren't willing to put in that extra work, you're gonna see your colleagues pass you by. And that's tough. But then you start thinking about, okay, like, how do I put in work? And it's not just doing things over and over and over. That's why I've been really quite a fan lately of like getting together with friends and working that way. Like, I had a friend come over recently and I did some monologues for her, and kind of as scary as that was, because performing in front of your peers is always kind of scarier than doing it for a panel or whatever, it was really, really helpful, and I felt really good about that audition. I just feel like this is kind of a blabbery episode. To me, it's really just interesting thinking about, how do we work as performers? You know, what kind of hours do we put in? Because again, performing is something interesting. It's almost like you can't really work harder. You have to work smarter. And with our culture, that's just not something that's like this tangible thing that we can feel. And I just kind of want to know from you guys, like, what's your strategy for working? What is your working smarter? Because there comes a certain point, I think, in any performer's life where you realize, or at least most performers, I shouldn't say every performer, but with a lot of performers, where you realize this talent that I've been kind of sailing on is not going to continue to work for me, because people are working smarter and surpassing me. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's happening to me, but it has happened to me in the past, where all of a sudden I'm realizing, like, oh my God, like, I'm not working like other people. I need to put in more time, and I need to put in more concentration into this thing that I've just kind of taken for granted my whole life. It's happened to me before, and it's just got me thinking, you know, like, how am I working? What am I doing? And would love to know from you guys. This is kind of a shorter episode, but it's been a while since I've done a shorty. I just kind of want to know from you guys, like, how do you work on things? Like, what is your strategy? I've been finding a lot of success in like working with my peers and working with other people, not just on singing, but on other things, and putting myself out there and growing in terms of like doing things that I'm not comfortable with. So yeah, I just kind of want to know from you guys, like this idea, you know, riding on talent. When was your moment where you were like, I can't do this anymore, I have to start working? And then how did you transition into like working smarter? How did you do that? I would love to know. So hit me up and have a great week.